It's part two of my conversation with Ryan Chambers. We get into the Mikko Rantanen trade, Ryan's affection for Ryan O'Reilly, and plenty more on today's episode of Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. And before we jump into today's episode with Ryan Chambers, part two of my conversation with Ryan of Starcastic Remarks. Always great to have him on. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Part two is a lot of fun. We talked about the Mikko Rantanen trade and that craziness that went on with Carolina and Colorado. We also got into Ryan O'Reilly. I asked Mr. Chambers, is there a certain player out there that you have your eyes on at the trade deadline? And I of course, asked him about sort of my theory with the Stars having too many similar archetypes and all that good stuff. And we have a ton of fun to wrap up our conversation. So without further ado, enjoy today's episode. Have a great weekend, Stars fans. And of course, we'll see you on Monday for another edition. You went through some of the West there. With Minnesota, of course, Kaprizov just got announced he's having to go to surgery. Winnipeg, of course, they're still chugging along. But Colorado, this trade was so interesting to me. I was calling a game. I think it was Friday night it happened. Could have been Saturday. So I wasn't on my phone. And then, I get off the game and, I get on my phone and I'm like, Rantanen traded? Like, this is an absolute joke. Like, this is a joke. There's no way. And then, it starts coming on my feed. Rantanen to Carolina. Mind boggled. And for Necas, I was so confused and befuddled. But I understand where Colorado's probably coming from with you're not going to be able to re-sign him. Even though there's now reports coming out that he was willing to sign for less, but he wanted more than MacKinnon possibly. So Colorado went into the mindset of, well, we can't re-sign it. We might as well get something for him. And Asia's a great player. So good. But your thoughts on the deal? I was just so surprised because MacKinnon, Rantanen, like one of the best duos, really the second best behind Draisaitl and McDavid. I thought it was crazy stuff. It makes sense, but still, I'm almost shocked that deal was made.
Yeah, I was flabbergasted, to use a word of my dad. I did not see this trade coming in a million miles away. I probably should have, because the rumors were out there that Mikko Rantanen wanted somewhere around $14 million. And by the way, he said something around, oh, well, I was willing to take a pay cut and, just to stick around. Okay, well, what did you think fair market value was? Were you thinking your market value was 15 million and you were willing to take 13.5? I mean, there's a lot of teams that are starting to base their cap structure off of their best player, and you're not going to make more than this best player. And now, I mean, they've come out now, and Nathan MacKinnon is the furthest one in the world who cares about money in terms of, like, oh, well, I deserve more money than this guy. This guy is making more money than me. He shouldn't be making more. No, he doesn't care. But anyways, I'm just surprised of, I think the biggest thing that I would take out of all of this is both teams didn't want to part with what they had, but it made sense for both teams in many different aspects. And you make a list. The pros outweighed the cons for both teams, and it just made sense. Carolina gets a guy in Rantanen who, speaking of teams that can't seem to get over a certain hump, Carolina's been a good team for a long time, and they've had deep runs, and they always seem to get, and we joke about it, it's a stereotype, get swept in the conference final. Like why is that? And now they could argue, yes, they had to give up Necas, but look at this shiny new toy we got who scores 50 goals every other year. Right. And like, this guy has been there, done that. And on top of it, he's here for the rest of the year at the very least. So, I mean, this is well worth it if you're a Carolina Hurricane fan. And then from the Colorado perspective, yes, you're having to give up the best player in the deal, and a lot of people will say that you lost the deal. But this is the whole thing about mortgaging your future for the present. And in a way, signing Rantanen to what he wants, like 14, 15 million, is, kind of mortgaging your future a little bit, because you have less money to go out and get the players that you need to surround Nathan MacKinnon and Makar and whoever else, the core of that team. So in a way, that's kind of mortgaging your future a little bit. And then the last thing I would mention is, from what I have researched and what I've, seen video wise in looking at Nathan MacKinnon interviews and Jared Bednar interviews and stuff like that, that they were completely caught off guard.
Yeah, which is weird.
That right there is flat out wrong. Like that is absolutely flat out wrong. Yes. Does it help your team? Probably does. Honestly, yes. I mean, you're getting a guy that's $6.5 million that, doesn't do the same things that Rantanen does. But could MacKinnon turn him into a Rantanen? If there's anybody that could, it would be Nathan MacKinnon.
Yeah.
So it's just, just the fact that they didn't run that by him. I mean, that's like trading Wyatt Johnston away for like Connor McDavid. Yeah, that's great. Of course, who wouldn't want Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, right?
Yeah.
But you don't go and tell Jamie Benn what you're doing. The guy that's been around for 15 years, who's been your captain for the longest time. You don't go, Colorado doesn't go and talk to their guy who is I would argue is the top 5 player in the world. You don't go and discuss that with him. Like that seems like something important that you should kind of do.
Yeah, very, very curious that it wasn't run by him. I completely agree. I mean, he's the second best player in the world, in my opinion. So to not run it by him was an interesting choice. Too, Rantanen has won a cup there. There's probably not as much loyalty. Let's say the Avs haven't won a cup together with that core. They probably hold on to him to give that group a chance. But I felt like, well, they'd already won a cup. He's sort of already got paid. Of course, he's going to get, a huge contract here wherever he goes, whether he stays in Carolina or not. That it was sort of a win-win, I feel like, for both teams. And then Carolina adds Taylor Hall, who, has sort of bounced around lately, but has been, a nice piece. I mean, he was with Boston a few years ago when they ended up blowing that lead to Florida, but he was such an impactful player for them in that, series. So yeah, I think it was a win-win for both, but still, almost mind-boggling. And the reports of MacKinnon and Bednar not knowing that was sort of in the works. What was a bit surprising, but I guess that's the business of the NHL as well. I'm curious, any names out there, any guys that you or your brothers have thrown out there that you're intrigued about Dallas? Anyone that sticks out to you that you would love to bring? Let's just say, let's say this is pre-Miro, the injury. We don't know anything about this. So I'm curious, like from a few weeks ago, if there's anybody been on your radar that you and your brothers have thrown around. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Gametime. Attending NFL playoff games can be an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. I went to an NFL playoff game a few years ago, the Cowboys versus the 49ers, and of course, that was the infamous Dak Prescott run, and the Cowboys didn't have time to spike the ball. Seems to be pretty apropos for how the Dallas Cowboys have been run. But speaking of something that's being run so highly and so efficiently and perfectly, Gametime. And they have a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for those NFL playoff games or just events in general so easy. You want to go to a Stars game, a Mavs game. You want to go to a comedy, theater. They have it. Gametime Picks finds you a great value for all kinds of seats, and the app makes it so easy. You get all in pricing up front. You can see the view from your seats before you buy. You know exactly what to get before you get there. It takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. That's the great part. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. What time is it? It's game time.
and it's almost like you're throwing a softball to me. Like, I think you know what I'm going to answer with too. And I feel personally proud because I think I started this whole train. Ryan O'Reilly, and I know everyone's going to be like, we need a defenseman.
It's a great
like,
shout, actually.
Yes,
It's a great shout.
Yeah, like I understand that like everyone wants a defenseman, and to a certain extent they're right. But look at what Ryan O'Reilly does, and look at how well he would fit into this system, right? And not just the system. Yeah, he's now the only biggest con I think is if you're taking out the fact that if he doesn't even want to come here. Okay, so let's just pretend that that doesn't exist. The biggest con that I can think of is that he just has one extra year on his deal. That's it. Okay, that's the one thing. And with the cap going up, I'm not saying that is a non-negotiable or a deal breaker there, but I mean that could help with with all of that, and you could still get the players you want signed, like Wyatt Johnston, like Stankoven, and all the other guys that need a deal. And here's the reason why I want Ryan O'Reilly so bad. Like I so badly want this guy, and the more I did research into him, it got bad, Joey. I'm telling you, he is a center.
Yes,
he is. I can't even remember. I did a whole article or a blog post on him on sarcasticremarks.com. It's lengthy. Like it goes into depth. He is incredible in faceoffs.
Yes,
he is a two-way player. That sounds very familiar to Wyatt Johnston and Rope Hintz. And then here's the biggest thing that I think he would bring more to this team than anything. The only player on this team right now, off the top of my head, that I know has a Stanley Cup ring is Tyler Seguin.
Correct.
And he's not in the lineup right now. Not only does Ryan O'Reilly have a Stanley Cup ring, he won the stinking Conn Smythe as the best player in the NHL at that point. Now, all that being said, I'm not expecting Ryan O'Reilly to come in here and score 30 goals and be the Conn Smythe player. But you know who he does replace, who the Stars desperately miss, prior to this really good run post-Christmas? Joe Pavelski.
Yeah. Amen.
I mean, he it fits. Everything. It fits. He's been a captain in Buffalo. How many players have the Stars had that have come through that have been captains on other teams?
Yes.
Or assistant captains or really big leadership roles. Patrick Sharp, Jason Spezza, Ryan Suter to a certain extent. Like everything about Ryan O'Reilly really, really fits so stinking well. And then literally and this is just because I found this really, really exciting. After I made that blog post that I did, probably about 2 or 3 weeks later, there were some rumors that were going out there that Nashville was at least listening to stuff about Ryan O'Reilly. And Ryan O'Reilly is being considered like he has a no move clause, right? Even though he doesn't. So Barry Trotz, the GM of the Predators, if he wants to go somewhere, then Barry Trotz is going to oblige and let that happen if it makes sense for the Nashville Predators, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't want to go anywhere, he's not going to trade him. That's basically what he has come out and inferred. You can look at other things. So if he is willing to come to Dallas, which I would hope he would, considering how excited I am about this. But you get to play with some really young guys, and you get to go to this team who really needs somebody and really needs you. Not just the fact you get to go win a cup, possibly. You're needed in that organization. Like you can fill so many holes and fill all those holes in the boat that are trying to get it to sink. It just makes so much sense. And that's why I've been so much on this whole O'Reilly train for the past 2-3 months now.
I love it. You got me fired up with that one. I honestly haven't had him on my radar, but such a good shout. I love the player. You're exactly right. He brings experience, Stanley Cup experience.
By the way, I forgot to mention the cap hit, $4 million.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's perfect. And look, Dallas may have some room. Like we still have to see with Tyler. Like they could make some room for themselves, and he would just be icing on. Imagine how deep they would be down the middle. Rope, Johnston, Duchesne, Beck, who's a nice little and then over. I mean, yeah, that's a really good shout, and a great player to bring up. I think a lot of Stars fans would be all on board on that one. Yeah, you're gonna be fired up thinking about it. I'm gonna start beating that train with you then here over the next few weeks post Four Nations face off.
Hey, get on the train. It's already going. I already got some people who are excited about it. So there's more on the train.
Yes, I love it. We'll end with this since you gotta get out of here. But Vancouver on Friday. Canucks are interesting, man. There's a lot of hoopla coming out of the BC here over the last few weeks with Pettersson and JT Miller, who I'd love the Stars to get. I don't know if that's really possible, but I would add JT Miller to this roster too. What are you looking forward to against the Canucks? They're an interesting team, man. I thought they would sort of be kind of right in the thick of the things in the Pacific, but it's just been sort of a roller coaster with them. But the Stars got them coming to town, and then, they're pretty mediocre here over the last 10 games. But what are you looking forward to this Friday against the Canucks?
Obviously a win. I would hope so. I mean, not to be the obvious guy, but really what's going to be interesting is I want to see a really big breakout game from Liam Bichsel from the Stars side. I mean, that like we talked about. I mean, is he going to get 18, 19, 20 minutes? Like that's what I'm looking at for him. And is is Pete DeBoer going to lean heavily upon this young guy like he does Wyatt Johnston? Wyatt Johnston normally, and people don't talk about it, he gets more minutes than almost every other forward. I mean, you go back, he gets now it's not like Nathan MacKinnon or, Connor McDavid levels, but he is very regularly the player on the Stars forward wise that gets the most time on ice. So it's going to be interesting to see what Liam Bichsel does on Friday. And I'll go ahead and throw this into. I like the idea of JT Miller for a couple of reasons, and I wasn't on it at first to be completely honest with you, because I was like most people. I was just like, well, he's kind of got a little bit of a temper. He's got a little bit of a I don't want to say history, but reputation, I guess, is a better word. Yeah, as like a guy that doesn't really get along with others. But you're telling me with the locker room the Stars have.
That was my point.
that like JT Miller, that part of him would not be, notched down.
Yes,
they could have. If there's a team in the league that could do it, it would be the Dallas Stars. And the thing that and my brothers talked me into it is with him, he also brings a little bit of edginess to him, which that's an aspect of the Stars that nobody seems to have right now. I mean, the one that has had the most edge, when you look at the 2 hits that Miro has taken, I mean, when he took that Matt Rempe hit, who was the one that stuck up for him? Rope Hintz.
Again.
And then he did it again.
Twice,
So is it Rope
and you really don't want Rope. You don't want him answering the bell.
Yeah, right.
Your number one center who has a history with injuries. That's not the guy you really want sticking up for a hit like Miro. But I think you're absolutely right. And you hear it all levels too. I think all levels of hockey. This guy's a cancer in the locker room. Sometimes it just takes to get into the right one. And I think Miller would fit in just fine in Dallas. And you're right on the nail too. Johnston's played 19 minutes, 20 seconds has been his average time on ice, the most of any forward by almost a minute and a half. Robertson's the next closest at 17:58. And, partially, White plays in all situations. So that certainly helps. But even then, if it's a 6-on-5 late, Wyatt Johnston's usually out there to try to pot home a goal. It's so nice to see him start playing to the capability we know he can. So unfortunate he got off to a bit of a slow start, but he's really starting to turn it on. Ryan, appreciate you joining me today. We got through a lot. Appreciative of you for sliding in. I know you got a late one again tonight, so I hope that goes well with the boys. And always appreciate it. Please let people know where they can find you with you and your brothers. Obviously, I'm sure many listeners are already well aware of Starcastic remarks, but be sure to shout out you and your brothers. You're doing great stuff.
By the way, it's all good. I got my Mountain Dew.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be up late. Yeah. Anyways, it's basically anywhere social media at Sarcastic or YouTube. literally anywhere you can probably think of the main channel wise, we're probably there. And then go to sarcasticremarks.com too. I'm dead serious, and I'm not just doing that to toot my own horn or anything like that. Like, go and read that blog post or whatever you want to call it, and it will get you just as excited, because there's very specific stats that I found that back up my argument with everything that I told you about Ryan O'Reilly. So seriously, like, please, I want people to get excited about this, because I want there to be a little bit of pressure on Jim Nell. Not like he would ever really do it. It makes me feel like I can actually influence something, right?
I love it. Yeah. We can have some influence. Say, why not? Let's knock down his door. Let's get the Ryan O'Reilly hype train going. But I appreciate you, man.
Of course. Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Alrighty, Stars fans, be sure to give Ryan Chambers a follow over at Starcastic Remarks. Him and his brothers doing awesome stuff over there. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe on today's episode. Appreciate you joining us on Locked On Stars. I apologize that I missed the last few days, but I promised I would make it up to you guys, and that's why I brought on Ryan Chambers. We could do a bit longer form episode, and it's good to chat with somebody else and get some new opinions here on the pod. Have a great rest of your day, Stars fans, and we'll catch you later.